Hi, I'm Irene Tansman, author of A.B. and Arlene's Autism War. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the VOR Voice of Reason 2025 Legislative Initiative for the 119th Congress. That happened on May 13th, 12th, 13th, and 14th of 2025. Compared to last year, this year's initiative was a little bit different than the previous year. The previous year, we had bills that we were for, bills that we were against, and it was very, very clear going into each legislator's office what exactly we were supposed to say. This year, it was different because of all the changes that are happening. So what we were fighting for, I'm going to tell you what we were fighting for. No cuts to Medicaid. Now, why no cuts to Medicaid? After all, they're not going to require people who have autism level 3 to work. Although we might be forced to do some paperwork and jump through some hoops, but it's unlikely that they're going to expect our loved ones to fulfill those work requirements, and they keep on saying able-bodied. So what's the problem here? Why is VOR says no cuts, no way, no how? The reason why is because when there are cuts to Medicaid, what happens is people show up in emergency rooms. And emergency room treatment and facilities are a staple for people with severe disabilities who are in home and community-based services, because that population does not receive adequate health care. They don't receive health care from doctors and nurses with specific expertise in severe autism or people with communication difficulties. Instead, they have to go to regular community doctors and nurses, and a lot of times they can't do really anything. So our population ends up in emergency rooms. And anything that's going to affect hospital closures or emergency rooms will eventually affect the severe population. And that's why VOR is against any cuts at all. Now, for some of the things that have been proposed around the table, changing or freezing the provider tax or changing the FMAP, which is the federal match, that will really, really affect our loved ones, because what happens is the less the federal government contributes, the states have to make that up. And when they are forced to make decisions on who to cut and who not to cut, they don't want to end up being the state that's the migration destination for families with loved ones with severe IDD or severe autism. This is a population that's very expensive. So they don't want to be the migration destination. They don't want to be the best. They don't want to be the best state that offers services. So my feeling is that if they change the FMAP, we would be first on the chopping block. Now, when Governor Maura Healey of Massachusetts needed money, her first thought was, let's close the Pappas Rehabilitation Hospital, which is a facility for children with severe disability, severe IDD. And that was her first choice, was to eliminate a resource for this population. It's a very small population. It's not a big voting bloc. It's not going to affect any reelection chances if she throws us under the bus. It's just an easy choice for any politician to consider this first. Consider it first, because they can't speak out. Many of them can't speak at all, and it's not a big voting bloc. And so let's cut there. We don't want to have it go to the states, because the states don't have the incentive to provide high quality services for this population. Okay, so no Medicaid cuts at all. That's the VOR position. And after much thought, I agree with it. And so it was easy for me to go into lawmakers' offices and say, we don't want to have any cuts to Medicaid. Okay, then the next thing that we were advocating for is oversight of protection and advocacy centers. Now, in Massachusetts, that's the Disability Law Center. Now, we have a lot of abuse and neglect in Massachusetts, and we have a system where if there is abuse, you can call what's called fill out the online form for the Disabled Persons Protection Commission. And if the person is a DDS client, that will get referred to the DDS investigations unit. And the DDS will then investigate itself. Now, I have had situations where my son has come home with black and blue marks and things like that. And the DPPC and the DDS investigations unit would not accept pictures. Well, the whole complaint was the way he looked, a picture. They told me that if they feel that they require a picture, that they will let me know. Otherwise, they will not consider a picture as evidence of abuse. So abuse in Massachusetts, basically, the DDS investigates itself. We really don't have any real oversight preventing abuse and neglect, except for the protection and advocacy centers. So we would like to see them continue. However, they have gotten themselves into things that are basically promoting ideology. For instance, they are pushing the supported decision making. That's an ideology. That there is no evidence that guardianship, the person is going to be abused and neglected more with guardianship than with supported decision making. In fact, there's some evidence to the contrary. So that's an ideology that they're promoting, and they're using taxpayer-funded dollars to promote that ideology. They also have been instrumental in closing down self-sheltered workshops and in closing down intermediate care facilities. And I believe that those things should be our choice, not their choice. So there needs to be reform of protection and advocacy centers. We need to still have them, but they need to concentrate on abuse and neglect, and just that. They shouldn't be pushing any ideology at all, not on the taxpayer dollar. So that's we were advocating for oversight of protection and advocacy centers. And then the third thing is, which I'm not going to go in great detail about it, is we wanted to, talk about what direct support professionals do, support our DSPs, and talk about what would be a fair wage for DSPs. And there's a lot of talk about it. I'm not going to go over it again because I'm sure if you're listening to this video, you've already heard about it. So those were the three things that, our three main points. We're also talking about our own individual stories. VOR is they're advocates for choice. In other words, we feel that the parents and the families should have the choice, that the government should not decide what is morally correct for our loved ones. We should be the ones deciding, not them. We should be the ones deciding the placement, not them. Okay, so that's basically what we talked about in lawmakers' offices. I think that it's important to advocate on both a state and federal level. I think you're missing out on something if you're only doing the state, and I think you're missing out on something if you're only doing the federal. Now, one of the things that I'm sure that people who are watching this video are asking themselves, well, what good does it do? Did you get anything from it? Well, you don't get anything from it from one visit. You have to do multiple visits over many years, and you're developing a relationship. And will you get something out of it? I don't really know. I don't really know if in the end I'm going to get something out of it, but I'll know that I did everything that I could. I won't have any regrets. And that's why I do the legislative advocacy. Also, it is very interesting to meet people from all across the country who are of the same mindset. And I think it's actually a wonderful experience. So, another thing I would like to talk about is we were there during the same time that ADAPT was there. And I know that people have seen the news reports that these people are getting arrested. They're arresting people who are advocating against the Medicaid cuts. And at no time did we feel that somebody was going to arrest us. What happens is if they're not really behaving themselves the way they should, then there's that possibility. Okay, so I'm getting in a call, but I don't really want to answer it. So anyway, I took literature from ADAPT, and they made remarks as we walked by about VOR, but in reality, we're fighting for a lot of the same things. They go no cuts or caps to Medicaid. Well, that was our first thing. That was what we mostly talked about, no caps. And the institutional bias. Well, for people with severe IDD or severe autism, there's no institutional bias. It's very, very difficult to get into a developmental center. You've got to have a lawyer and everything. However, these people were in wheelchairs. I think that when they're talking about institutional bias, they're talking about nursing homes. That if they lost their HCBS, that they would be in nursing homes. And that's probably true. They're sort of like a different population. But here they say there needs to be a mandatory long-term support services benefit available everywhere with uniform eligibility that is portable and flexible, including during disasters and emergencies. Well, I would agree with that. It really should be portable. That would increase quality exponentially because all the providers would be competing against every other provider in the entire country. They have that under their heading and the institutional bias, but I think that that's wonderful what they want to do. That they want to have uniform eligibility and have everything portable and flexible, and it doesn't matter. You could go to any state that you want. You don't have to, when you go to a new state, have to go on a waiting list, do the whole thing all over again. Fair wages and benefits for the LTSS workforce. That's the DSPs that I was talking about. That's the same thing that we're doing. Housing, affordable, integrated, and accessible. Hey, that sounds good. No cuts to housing funding under HUD. That's good. The last thing, money follows the person. No, that's the only thing I'm against, because they've used money follows the person to close the developmental centers, and we feel that we should have a choice. But a lot of these things that ADAPT wants, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think that that's right. No cuts to Medicaid. Yeah. Make long-term care services and supports available across the country and portable. Yeah, I agree with that. Fair wages for the DSPs. Yeah, we agree with that. Housing, we agree with that. And that's all we disagree with is that we feel that there should be a choice, that the individuals and their families should choose what kind of services the individual should have, and ADAPT feels, is sort of the one size fits all kind of thing. So that was the VOR Legislative Initiative. It was worthwhile to go to it. I would encourage everybody watching this video who's concerned about autism level 3 or severe intellectual disabilities. I would encourage them to join VOR and to come to the legislative initiative next year, maybe. Or you might want to join another organization and go to their legislative initiative. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and I'll see you on the next one.